Hello and welcome to Colred Plays Raid Shadow Legends. I am Colred. Thank you for being here. This is part 2 or episode 2 or number 2 video in my Raid Fundamental series. So we covered in the first one, we covered this screen that you log into. This is your base. It's called the Bastion. And we talked about all the buildings here and all the different buttons, all the different timers, all the different icons, everything that you can do here. So if you haven't already seen that video and you have any questions about your Bastion, go ahead and check out that video first. And in this video, we're going to take on champions. This is probably the next thing you have questions about, which is like, what do we do with our champions? How can we learn about our champions? How can we learn about champions that we don't have? How can we get champions that are new to us? You know, where do we get our champions from? And then, you know, how do we level them up? What do we use them for? So we're going to get into all of those questions. So we're going to cover basically everything to do with champions. There are some mechanics with champions that are very in-depth and require their own video. So consider this one a bit of an overview. All right, so let's go ahead and start with the champion roster down here in the bottom right. We'll just click on champions, and this is going to be your roster. In the middle, it's going to be the first champion in your roster, and you know, you can see the animations, which are always cool. If you want to go to more of sort of a list view, you just click up here and you can see all of the champions that you have in your roster. Now there is an active roster. Okay, so this menu here on the left is your active roster, and the active roster is champions that you can pull and put into fights currently, just easily any fight that you want. When you click on it, it will be available in the menu. So you can use this to decide which champions you want to have available very easily. Now, this particular screen is going to be where you interact with your champions a lot. There's a lot that goes on here. If you like, you can go and read the champion lore. Some champions don't have lore. A lot of champions don't. They've just added this recently, and they're still putting in lore for a lot of champions. You can go and check the reviews. Take the reviews with a grain of salt. They're okay. They're okay at a glance to see whether or not a champion might be good for you. But I would definitely not worry too much about the review. You can lock your champion or unlock your champion. If you lock your champion, the champion's harder to accidentally delete or consume or do stuff to or change. You can still change the gear if it's locked. That doesn't affect that. You can also put a symbol on your champion, depending on what you want that symbol to be. Cardiel's my favorite champion, so I put favorite on. If the champion has a skin, you could find it here. And then you can switch back between the tavern and the champion collection really easily with just this one button, which is actually a really nice feature because you're going to be using these two screens to like gear out and level up and skill up your champion. The stats are over here on the bottom right. The green stats are stats that have been added based on all sources, and the white stats are the stats that champion has as a base. Now these white stats will change as you star up and level up your champion. So every level you might get more health or you might get more defense. As you star up, you might even get more speed or more resistance. So these numbers will change, but once you're at 6 stars and fully maxed out at level 60, these numbers will never change. So now those are locked in, and the only way to add stats is to add stats in this other column, which is based on multiple sources. We're going to go and look at those sources. And you can see here, most of it comes from artifacts. Some are from affinity bonuses. Okay. Then there's classic arena bonuses. So this is just active in arena. Masteries add these stats. Faction Guardians, which is a building that we talked about in the first video. Faction Guardians will add some stats, but you won't always have stats here. I have no empowerment for this champion. Empowerment requires you to sacrifice a duplicate in order to empower a champion, and Cardiel's extremely rare, so I don't have any duplicates of Cardiel and I can't empower him. You can only empower legendaries, by the way, so you can't do that with epics, rares, uncommons, or commons. Cardiel does have a blessing. Those are the stats that gives him. And then if I go to the different areas, I can look where I might have, let's see, I might have area bonuses based on my live arena combat that I've gotten bonuses from. If you select a piece of gear, you will go into the artifact storage, and this is where you can equip gear to a champion, or you can swap gear out. I'm not going to do a deep dive into this right now because gear is its own thing. In fact, you could do multiple videos just on gearing because there's so many sets in the game. But one thing to know here is you can go into the filter and you can put the fitting room on. And what that allows you to do is then try on a piece for free, and it will show you how the stats change. If you don't like it, you can just take it off, and it doesn't cost you any silver. So you're trying it on without actually trying it out, and you can see, without actually equipping it, and you can see what the stats do. You can also, go through the filters. You can filter by various things here. And then you can do the same for your accessories. Okay. All right. So now let's talk about skills and mastery. So skills, on this tab, you can see the champion's skills. Cardiel has 4 skills. So A1, A2, A3, and then passive. The P means passive. And some passives have cooldowns, some don't. This is one that does not have a cooldown, so it is just always active. So you can go in there and check out your various characters, your various champions' abilities. One of the things that you'll notice is that these are booked out. They are white, not gray. So that means I've added skill tomes to improve these skills, and they are maxed out. And that's what it says here, level 7 out of 7. If it wasn't maxed out, it would say, level 2 out of 7 or 5 out of 7 or wherever I was. And now up here at the top where it says this little circular arrow and then fortress, that's the cooldown. And that does take into consideration the cooldown books that you've put. So this was originally 6 cooldowns. I've got 2 books in that each lower cooldown once, and that means that the current cooldown is 4 turns. So this number is the current cooldown. It is not the maximum cooldown. It takes into account the books. However, any numbers that are in the text, those don't get changed. So here where it says heals all allies by 7.5% of their max HP, but then down here you can see that the books have increased the healing. I get 20% extra healing. That has not been factored into this 7.5. This is multiplicative healing. That means I'm getting a 20% bonus of what I'm already doing. I'm not getting 27.5. That's not how this works. I'm just getting 7.5% plus 20% of 7.5%, which is an additional 1.5. So I'm actually getting 9% healing total. So that's how that works. Anything in green is a ability. It's usually a buff. Anything in red, if you go to another champion, let's say, actually, we don't have anything in red here. So bomb. So this is a debuff. So yeah, you wouldn't have red text here. Sorry, it's only going to be green. But these are buffs or debuffs. Okay, and then down here it says damage based on blank. That is the statistic. So in this column, that's the stat that damage is actually based on. So what that means is Nishak Vermin Lord's A1 does damage based on its attack stat. So the higher the attack stat, the better off you are. Defense doesn't help damage. HP doesn't help damage. Nothing else helps damage. However, other champions will say do damage based on a different stat. So here, Wither the Crowned does damage based on defense. So defense obviously makes you harder to kill, makes a champion harder to kill, but it can also increase your damage. And so you always want to know what the damage source of your champion is. So if you go to your starter champion, my starter champion was Elhain. You'll see she's an attack-based champion. And then as you click on the skills, you see her damage is based on attack. All 3 are based on attack. So if I'm trying to build her strong, I want to, to hit hard, I want to put attack-based items onto her to get her attack stat up as high as possible. I actually had mine built out in a stun set for a different reason. And then crit rate and crit damage are important. So crit rate, basically, you can do a normal hit, you can do a weak hit, or you can do a strong hit, a crit hit. So if you do a weak hit, that's when you're weak affinity. So if you are hitting a champion, an enemy that is strong affinity to you, so you're the weak affinity, you have a 30% chance, I believe it's 30% chance of getting a weak hit. And weak hits can't apply debuffs, and they obviously do less damage. A A critical hit does extra damage, and the extra damage is this percentage here. So if I actually go here, you can see she has 175 crit damage. That's 175% bonus damage over the normal damage that a normal attack does. So you get the 100% like normal damage plus 175% over that. So you're actually getting 2.75 times as much damage. Let's talk about masteries. Masteries are important. Masteries are a really big part of customizing your champion and making them as effective as possible. So whatever champion you happen to choose, let's go ahead and look at Elhain again. You can click on masteries and you have 3 trees of masteries to choose from. Now you can run 2 out of 3 trees. You cannot run all 3 trees. And as soon as you select 2 of these, the third one will be eliminated. You won't be able to select anything in it. In order to get these, you have to get these different scrolls. So you have, I don't know what the scrolls are called exactly, but you have these sort of plain scrolls, the green scrolls, and then the red fancy scrolls. So the first 2 tiers, it starts at the top. So this is tier 1. You get 1 of 2 choices in each of your trees. That's all you can get for tier 1. In tier 2, you get 3 choices between the 2 that you choose. You can't do 3 in 1. Okay, you can't do 3 in 1 tree. You can choose 2 in 1 tree, 2 masteries in 1 tree, and 1 mastery in the other tree. And the reason is if you picked 3, you literally wouldn't be able to use the other mastery tree. Once you get to tier 3, tiers 3 and 4 require the green scrolls, and then tiers 5 and 6 require the kind of gold and red fancy scrolls. You are only allowed 1 tier 6 mastery, and that's called the capstone mastery. That's like the most important one that you're going for. So you want to make sure that you know which capstone mastery you're aiming for and that you build a path that makes sense to get there. Okay. Now you have to collect these scrolls from the Minotaur's dungeon. So you go to the dungeons, you have Minotaur's Labyrinth. And as you can see, the higher up you go, the better and more fancy scrolls you get. So you want to push Minotaur's Labyrinth pretty much as quickly as you can so you can start collecting masteries. There is a second option, which is that if you have a character who, let's say, doesn't have masteries, let's go here. No masteries. We have some masteries. Let's find someone with no masteries and no scrolls. There we go. Okay. So you can go here and you can start to try to put stuff in and it'll say, okay, you know, you don't have any scrolls. You can unlock it with scrolls, or you could just get all the scrolls. And if you get all the scrolls, it costs 800 gems. Now, this is a really good option to do on your first champion, your starter champion, and maybe one more champion. After that point, gems are so rare that you don't really want to spend gems on scrolls. Unless you are a spender and you're just buying a lot of gems all the time, which is fine if you are. I would avoid using gems to unlock scrolls. The nice thing is when you do that, you get all of the scrolls. You get the maximum number and you can just fill it out. So that's why you use it on your first, you know, your starter champion, because it just upgrades the power so much that you're going to progress your account really quickly by getting those scrolls in place and getting those masteries in place. The primary source of champions is going to be from shards. So you go to the portal. These are the 4 types of shards that are in the game currently. And you can see that each summons a different rarity of champion, and they are summoned at different rates. So there's different drop rates. It's kind of like loot, right? So this is a loot box. You're opening a loot box and you don't know what you're going to get. So the mystery shards can give you commons, uncommons, and rares. That's actually good because you're going to need commons and uncommons to make into food so that you can progress your other champions. And then you can see ancients and voids give you rare, epic, and legendary. The difference here is that void shards give you void champions. So remember that each champion is one of 4 affinities, right? You have blue, red, green, and this kind of purple. So blue is called magic affinity. Red is called force affinity. Green is called spirit affinity. And the purple here is void affinity. And And yeah, so void champions are a little bit more rare. They don't have any strengths or weaknesses against the other affinities, while the other affinities kind of have a rock, paper, scissors thing going on where they're each strong against one affinity, weak against the other affinity, and then neutral to themselves. Okay. The final kind of shard here is Sacred Shard. And a Sacred Shard has a much higher chance of getting a legendary, and also you have no chance of getting rare. So you are guaranteed at least an epic champion from a Sacred Shard. If you want to know the exact percentages, you click here on the information button, and it'll bring you up and it'll show you each of the shard types and then each of the drop rates. If there is a summon event that changes these drop rates, so if you have a 2x event, then these graphics will change, these numbers will change. Down at the bottom here, these are the 10 times chances. So you have 10 times as likely a chance to pull one of these particular champions from this particular shard. But remember that it doesn't change these numbers here. So for instance, if I want to try to get Duchess, who is a phenomenal champion, I am going to need to pull a Sacred Shard. I can only get her from, I'm sorry, or an Ancient Shard. I have to pull an Ancient Shard or a Sacred Shard. I cannot get her from a Void, and I can't get her from a Mystery. So if I'm pulling Ancients, and it says 10 times from Ancients, 10 times from Sacreds, I only have a 1/2 of 1% chance of pulling a Legendary. And now there are probably, I don't know, 150 legendaries that I could pull. So if I successfully pull a legendary, I have a 1 in 150% chance of getting Duchess. But instead of 1 out of 150, basically what they're going to do is they're going to give me 10 out of 159 chance. So they add like 9 copies of Duchess to get me up to 10 copies of Duchess in the pool. And so it's a little bit of an improvement. It's not really a significant improvement. And so generally, this is not the best time to pull. Even if you want these champions, you might be like, oh, I got a really great chance of getting Duchess. You don't. You don't. 10 times is better than nothing if you're really going to spend a lot of shards. If you've got several hundred shards you've saved up, or you're a big spender, if you're going to whale out and you want to go for a champion, go ahead. That's your choice. But in general, you're better off saving for one of the special events that give you increased chances of getting champions. So either the 2x event, or potentially like a guaranteed champion event or a fusion or something like that. Okay. So that's where you can get champions. Now, there are a few other places where you can get champions. These are much more rare, and they're, well, okay, some are really common and some are really rare. Let's go to the common one first. So the most common place to get a champion is actually from campaign. So each of the stages of campaign, you can see there is a reward drop, and you see there are 6 different champions you can get from farming K-Rock Castle. Now, the chance of actually getting a rare is pretty low. I want to say it's like 2%, I think, at Brutal. So the lower the difficulty, the lower the chance of pulling the rare, and the more likely you're going to get the common or uncommon. As you go up, the chance of getting the rare is increased, but I don't think it ever tops 3 or 4%. It's pretty low. But still, you can farm this. So you can come in here and run this 60, 70, 80 times, and you're likely to get a rare drop. So if you're looking for a particular champion that drops from one of these chapters, this is the place where you can come and get those. So these are actually the most free-to-play friendly champions in the game because they're the most easily acquired. You just have to put in energy and time, and you will eventually get your drop. That's the easiest place to get some champions. There are only limited champions from campaign, but so there are some valuable ones. There are some uncommons that are very good. There are some rares that are very good that you may use for a long time. In addition to that, there are a few other places to get champions. So one of them is here in the portal. You can fuse champions. There will be 3 fusions at the beginning of the game. These 2 fusions here for these epics are permanent, so you can fuse them multiple times if you want to. And then there is a legendary here that I've already fused. His name is Razin Scarhide. He's a very good legendary champion. You should try to fuse him as early as possible in the game. It may take you a few months. But once you fuse him, you only can fuse him once, and he comes out of your fusion menu here. So those champions can be collected. In addition, there are missions. These are known as the Arbiter missions because if you collect enough of these missions, you get Arbiter. Arbiter is a phenomenal champion. Obviously, she's one of the main characters of the game. She is the character after which the animated series Call of the Arbiter is named. So she's very important to the story, and she's an incredibly powerful champion. She really shines in arena, but she's good in a lot of places. So you're going to want to focus on getting Arbiter as quickly as possible. Again, it could take you several months. The fastest I've seen it is probably about 2 months. I got mine in about 6 months. So don't feel like you're going to just get this champion immediately, but you always want to focus on moving these Arbiter missions along. Once you collect Arbiter, then you get to the Ramantu missions. The Ramantu missions are just missions that continue to get this champion. So they take another year or so or two. That's a very long grind. In fact, this champion is widely considered the win condition. Like, this is when you win raid, is when you get Ramantu. So there are a couple of other champions like that in Faction Wars. Once you collect every single star, you max out every single faction, you can get Lydia. She is a top 5 champion of the game. I just got mine 2 days ago. So she is phenomenal. It does take a very long time to get, but that is a free champion. Also, if you go to Hydra Boss, and this is one you definitely want to start doing early. You want to do this right away. If you, it's not going to show mine anymore. If you beat the Hydra Boss, you will get shards towards a fusion champion that you can collect. And that champion is Mithrala. Mithrala is probably a top 20 champion. She's maybe not quite as good as Lydia, but she's close. She is a really phenomenal champion. And this is probably of all of the collection champions, of all of the like progression champions that you can grab for free, this is by far the easiest, fastest champion to grab if you're focusing on Hydra. If you don't focus on Hydra, you'll never get this champion because you can't get her from shards. Just like you can't get Lydia from shards. You can get Arbiter from shards, but you can't get these two champions from shards. So you definitely want to focus on collecting them if you can. Another place you can get champions is your daily login. There are still more places to get champions. One is Doom Tower. So when you get into Doom Tower, as you climb up and you pass, you kind of make it through the turns. You get up to floor 5 of each kind of level. The 5th floor or the 6th floor. I forget which one it does. It unlocks a secret room. This is secret room 1. Now, when you complete a secret room, you will get shards towards a Doom Tower champion. These champions are a mixed bag. Some of them are very good. Some of them are okay. There are ones that you can get from the normal difficulty of Doom Tower, and there are different ones you can get from the hard level of Doom Tower. And you need to collect 100 shards in order to then get that champion. So you need to you get 3 shards for clearing a secret room, and then those show up here in your fragment summons. So for instance, Thea the Tomb Angel is a Doom Tower champion that I've collected. I haven't actually summoned her yet because I want to save that for a champion chase or a CVC where I can get points for summoning her. Fusion champions are once a month. There will be a fusion event. There are some very good fusion champions. I would say you probably don't want to try going for your first fusion until at least your 3rd month and probably more like your 4th or 5th month in the game. And then you need to save resources so that you can attempt the fusions because it takes a lot of resources. You need thousands of energy. You need tens of millions of silver. You need a lot of gems. You need a lot of time. So a fusion event can be fairly involved. So now we know all of the champions in the game are here in the index. We know where we get our champions from. Now the question is, which champions are good and which are trash? And it's hard to tell sometimes. You don't know. A really cool looking champion can be awful. A legendary cannot be as good as a rare. So there are rares who are stronger than certain legendaries. There are epics that are definitely stronger than legendaries. And there's some legendaries who are just plain awful. In general, the pool of legendaries is stronger than the pool of epics, is stronger than the pool of rares, and so on and so forth. But for instance, there are uncommon champions. There's at least one uncommon champion that you will be playing into the end game. And there are a lot of legendaries that you won't be playing at end game. So even an uncommon champion can be extremely valuable. So again, how do we know based on who we've collected and who are we looking for and whether a fusion event is coming out? How do we determine whether a champion is valuable? And the answer is kind of complicated. One, I would suggest getting really familiar with champion skills, going into your roster and reading the skills, and then learning what those skills do. Obviously, you can watch my series of videos. I will cover lots of this information as we go. You can also check out other content creators. There are a ton of good ones out there. So you can do champion spotlights. You can talk about buffs and debuffs. You can talk about team compositions. You can talk about particular boss fights and how to beat them. There are all sorts of things that you can research, that you can look at. You can jump into a Discord community where, other players will coach you up. But if you just want a really good resource, I've got 2 of them for you that are going to help you determine which champions are worth building and which ones you can just stick in your vault or, use as food to level somebody else up. So I'm going to take you over here to some websites. Now, the first one is ayumilove.net. I will put the links to both of these websites in the description below, so you can just click on those and go directly to them. So Ayumi Love's been around for a long time, and Ayumi Love does more than just Raid Shadow Legends, but this is the Raid Shadow Legends page here. Now, there are a lot of resources, but one of the things that you can do is on the right side here, you can say, okay, there's a list of different champions by different things. You can see a champion tier list if you want, and that just basically breaks it down into ranks: S rank, A rank, by rarity. You can also look at different rankings based on different fights. So if you want to look at who is good, let's say for the Dragon's Lair, you can go here and I'm sorry, this is just basically a guide. So it's got guides. But if you want to know who has a particular skill, let's say you want to know who has a speed aura. These are all the champions with speed auras, and it breaks it down by, again, what the speed aura is for, and then rare. This is hellhades.com. This is the HH gaming site. Hellhades is a content creator for Raid Shadow Legends. He's one of the biggest in the business, and he's a great content creator. You should definitely check him out. Check out his videos on YouTube. Check out his live streams. But absolutely sign up for this website. This is the central website for Raid Shadow Legends. The actual company, Plarium, that puts out Raid Shadow Legends doesn't have anything like this. So this is a third-party website that basically covers anything and everything in the game. You have articles up here at the top. Let's actually, I think my internet's a little slow right now. You have a bunch of links here. You can download the Raid Optimizer, which is a nice tool. You will have to sign up in order to get access to some things, but it's free to sign up, so go ahead and do that. And then also, just like Yumi Love's site, you have you can do a champion search here. You can find champions. You can go to the tier list up here, or you can also search by, let's say, buffs or debuffs or auras. So we want to go to that speed aura, just like we did at a Yumi Love site, and here's the page that you get. You can select any of these champions to see, again, a summary site and some ratings for those champions in the different areas of the game. And then also, if you keep scrolling down, you've got suggestions for masteries, you've got suggestions for blessings, and then you've even got like recommended sets based on PvE, PvP, so on and so forth. So I hope you found this helpful. If you have questions about champions in any way, shape, or form, question about a specific champion, how do you choose to level up a champion? Where do you choose to level up a champion? What do you do once you've got them leveled? How do you build a good team? All of those things, any of those things, or any other topic, please put that in the comments below, and I will try to get to your question either in the comments, or I'll even make a video about it at a future date. So thanks for hanging out. I hope you enjoyed the video. Good luck out there. I'll see you soon.